We will now go further to the interpretation of the definition recovery. As mentioned above, one of the three circumstances you need to clarify to be able to find out which control procedure that is relevant for a transport is what kind of treatment the waste will go through in the country of destination. A treatment procedure means, according to the definition in Article 314 in the Waste Directive from 2008, either recovery or disposal operations, including preparation prior to recovery or disposal. Waste that does not need to be subject to any treatment procedure is not covered by the provision of the regulation. There is one exception, but otherwise not. So, if you look in the regulation, you can see that the provisions concern only transports of waste for recovery or for disposal, and we have to prove that. One of the most common objections from the suspects are that it is used products shipped for reuse, not for recovery or disposal. It is not an easy task for an inspector far away from the country of destination to prove what is going to happen with the items at the destination. What is meant by recovery is defined in the regulation. In the same way as the waste definition, the regulation refers to the definition in the Directive 2006, not to the Waste Directive 2008. We have already talked about that problem, so we move further and use the latter directive, the one from 2008. Recovery according to the Waste Directive 2008 are mentioned in Article 3, paragraphs 15 to 18. Here is mentioned 4 different recovery operations with different titles: recovery, preparing for reuse, recycling, and regeneration of waste oils. As you can see in the regulation, here Article 36 as an example, exports from the community of certain listed waste destined for recovery are prohibited. The article says for recovery, not for preparing for reuse, recycling, or regeneration of waste oils. So, a question is if all 4 recovery operations are recovery in the meaning of the regulation, or if only the operation recovery in 315 can be used. In the above-mentioned guidelines of the Commission, you find the Commission's interpretation in this matter. The guideline emphasized that waste treatment is either recycling or disposal, and that the 3 subcategories in Article 3, paragraphs 16, 17 and 18 are recovery operations. So, if you use the guidelines, recovery is all of the operation mentioned here, independently on their titles. But is this an interpretation that will be the same in a criminal case, or would such an interpretation be an authorized extension of the term, forbidding according to the principle of legality? This was a question in the case from the Swedish Supreme Court. As we remember, the suspect claimed that it was a transport for reuse and not for recovery. But he also claimed that recovery was not the same as preparing for reuse. Before the case was appealed to the Supreme Court, 2 different Court of Appeals in Sweden had assessed the issue differently. One court stated that recovery in Article 36 also includes preparing for reuse operations. The other court states, for the sake of legal certainty, that only the definition in Article 315 was recovery, and that it would be an unauthorized extension of the term recovery to include the definitions in Article 316, 17 and 18 in the recovery definition. The question was brought to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court stated that recovery in Article 36 also includes preparing for reuse operations. So, recovery in Article 36, or in the whole regulation, includes all 4 operations, also in criminal cases, at least in Sweden. So, we have come to the conclusion. What you need to document in a criminal investigation to prove that it is a transport of waste for recovery and not used products for reuse is to document the following: age, condition, functionality and packaging, and that it has to be repaired, cleaned or controlled to function correctly again. In this way, you don't have to find either the missing holder or the receiver in the country far away. You just make sure to document the status of the items, at least according to the Swedish Supreme Court. And with this, I hope you will find it easier to start working with the regulation. You're always welcome with questions to me or to ENPE as a network, and of course to take part in the seminars arranged by ENPE. Thank you very much for your attention.